Okay, I think ignoring or failing to embrace AI is pretty much like not embracing all of these technologies that we now all use. But when these came out, social media, lots of people said, I'll never use it, it's invading my privacy, I'm not gonna ever use Facebook. I remember I do a lot of work in Australia, they said, we'll never use it in Australia. You know, it's gonna be illegal here, and of course now everybody uses Facebook and social media, all right? Mobile technology, all of these things that we talk about and say we were afraid of, or we ignored them to our own peril, because they're actually vital to our long-term success. So my belief is really that properly used technology, and I'm talking really about AI here, can do all of these things. It can transform your career. It will make you more productive by far than you are today. It will drive creativity, tremendous amount of creativity that we're going to unleash because of it, and in partnership with it. And you're going to become a lot smarter, and your IQ is already going up because of it, all right? And when organization, from the organizational side of things, almost the same parallels. More productive. You know, imagine if you can leverage AI effectively in your RPO. You can do twice the business with the same number of people you have now. I mean, this is the reality of what's coming, all right? You can create new products that you could never have created before. You can imagine and invent new things and new services that you haven't done before. You can increase your market share and market reach tremendously by leveraging these technologies. And obviously you can improve your sales, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that might happen. And you'll be able to analyze and understand the competition much more effectively than you do today. Right now, most of what we do is guesswork. It's anecdotal. It's, you know, we'll figure it out somehow. But what if you could actually use real data and real analytics to really understand what the competition is doing, what they're thinking, where they're going, and that's all going to be reality. So AI and automation are transformational. And Reid Hoffman, how many of you know who Reid Hoffman is? He was the co-founder of LinkedIn, and he's an entrepreneur, futurist himself, pretty interesting character. And he just said that he considers AI a generational technology. I mean, this is a fundamental technology that's going to change the whole world. And I mean, I think there's no question in my mind that that is true. You know, I started working with AI in the 1980s, believe it or not. At Stanford and MIT, we were experimenting with early stage AI. And it didn't really go anywhere from the 90s until about 2020. And it didn't go anywhere because nobody could figure out how to make it happen with the computing power that we had at that time. Computing was really expensive, and mainly mainframe or mini computers. And suddenly, computers became cheap, really, really cheap. You have more power in your iPhone than all of IBM had in the 1990s and even in early 2000s. You have more power in that phone than they had then, at all their computers. So it's incredible what we've done. Secondly, researchers in Canada primarily created the neural network breakthrough. And neural networks, I'm not going to get into, it's really complex, but basically it's a way that simulates the human brain in many ways and allows computers to do things that they could never have done before. ChatGPT would not exist without neural networks and computing power. So those two things were the fundamental accelerators, which kicked off in about 2020, 2020 really, kicked off this explosion in AI. And it's just going to continue to go as we move forward. So more and more capital is substituting for labor. And this is happening everywhere. Doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. But basically what it's saying is we're replacing even knowledge workers now with robots, software robots, with intelligent tools that do what a lot of people used to hire to do can now do. So when you look at the writer's strike that recently just was settled in LA, you know, one of their major issues was, is AI going to write scripts and write the comedy jokes for the shows? And you know, I think maybe, unfortunately, they got their contract to say they won't allow that to happen for at least 4 more years. I don't think that contract's going to hold up too long, personally, but I think this is where the fear comes in about what AI is going to be able to do, but it will do it despite the labor contracts and the fears. We're going to move into this era very quickly and very completely. So any routine job, any job that has a set of rules, take accounting, bookkeeping are good examples. These are jobs that pretty much follow a set of standard rules. They're already being done by computers. Any of you use QuickBooks or anything like QuickBooks? Already can do tons of the accounting that you used to pay somebody to do for you. You don't need to do it anymore. And this is just going to increase and increase, okay? Mid-level manufacturing jobs, significantly going to be impacted. And despite what's going on with the UAW strike right now, and despite what's going on politically, I don't think you're going to be able to stop the replacement of many of these workers with robots. And when you look at the robots around the world, which I'll show you in a minute, we're way behind. Okay? So robots are going to increasingly take over these lower paying jobs. And this is from the Boston Consulting Group, and this was about 3 years ago, this statement. So just a good example of where people already were thinking about, even way back then. So that first graph up there, that's the number of robots installed in China, number one, okay? You wouldn't have an iPhone or a MacBook computer unless those robots were making them in China, all right? So when we say we're going to bring manufacturing back to the US, the only way we're going to bring it back here and keep the prices of these objects affordable is if we install robots and increase our ability to do this. It's not about jobs anymore. It's about automation and technology. And that's really the challenge we face politically, okay? Big time, all right? The second one is Japan, up there. The third one is the United States. So if you look at how far back we are, we're way back behind these countries in using these robots and tools. This is where we really need to focus more of our time. And the amount of money that's being invested in robots and in automation is just increasing exponentially everywhere, okay? Just look at the amount of investment that's going on. 2021 was a big boost year for the amount of investment in artificial intelligence and robotics. It still is pretty high, and I think even though we're in a bit of dip right now, because we're consolidating and learning where we're going with it, you're going to see another huge investment. I mean, every VC that I talk to in Silicon Valley and every company that I talk to in Silicon Valley is trying to figure out which one of these companies to invest their money in, okay? Do we put it in Google? Do we put it in a startup? How do we invest this money and where are we going to invest this to? Because they know that this is pretty much the future of anything that we're doing out there, okay? Most jobs can be augmented, and I use augmented meaning assisted or helped or automated with technology. And I think any of you use grammar checkers, spell checkers, okay? Any of you, you're augmenting yourself with these tools, all right? And these are the primitive things. I mean, these are just the beginning. And now ChatGPT is writing essays for college kids. So a professor at the University of Texas, who I think is brilliant and innovative, he tells the students their assignment is to use ChatGPT to write the papers. And then he says, then they're asked to critique it. And how could they improve that paper? So rather than banning it, he's actually building this into the curriculum. And I think that's a brilliant and intelligent way to go about doing how we use these tools, and rather than being afraid of them and trying to ban them, how do we incorporate them into what we do? And that's really the key. And when you think about these jobs, I mean, think of any job. Think of what a recruiter does, and I'm going to talk about this later. How much of that could be done by a computer? I'm not asking whether you think it's a good idea or not, just could it be done by the computer? And you're going to see, I think, that a lot can be. So if we look at what can be replaced, if you look at the left side of this chart, anything that's based on numbers, facts, data, analytics, linear thinking, it can all be automated. Everything that was reported to you this morning in those reports could be generated in 10 seconds by a computer, all right? Those things they can go out in the marketplace, they can do the research, they can do all of this, and they will be doing this and are doing it in many cases already. The Census Bureau, the US government is already investing tons of money in how do we collect data using these tools rather than having people doing surveys and running polls and so forth and so on. So this is just going to grow tremendously. On the right-hand side of this chart, those things that are ideas, concepts, the creativity side, this is where we as humans will be. This is where we can survive and stay. So, rather than being a quant, how can you be an artist, right? That's really the point, is how can you begin to use those things where it's going to be a long time before we're going to get computers to be able to do the things that we can do. But there's a whole lot of things we do already that computers can do better than we do. So we just have to figure out, how do we transform ourselves out of that, or how do we raise the skills? Even if you're an engineer, how do I use creativity and imagination in my engineering as opposed to just doing the calculations? Because the computer can do the calculation. I have a good friend, he's a structural engineer, a seismic engineer for earthquakes. He used to have 12 draftsmen, he has nobody now. He pretty much runs his entire operation by himself. He is the guy that can come up with the idea of how can we make this building earthquake resistant, but he uses the computer to help him. And then the computer draws the plans, does all the drafting, all the blueprints, and everything else. So from being a multi-person operation to one or two people now, he's able to continue to build his business. So this is how can you incorporate this into what you do and be more successful and more profitable? If we look at what jobs are likely to be transformed, I did this chart a couple of years ago, and I think it's still pretty accurate. I think jobs that are transactional, the ones I just talked about a little bit ago, the secretary, the bookkeeper, the jobs that have rules that follow, that don't require a lot of judgment, it just requires you to follow the rules, do what you're told to do. Those jobs are going to be 70% automated. And the ones that aren't automated are going to be outsourced to the lowest cost provider, okay? And there may be a few inside the company, but not very many. If we look over here at the experts, and this is the area I was just talking about, this is the engineers, all the people that we today put on the highest pedestal and the highest salary levels. They will still exist, but in smaller numbers, because they're going to be augmented heavily with the technology. So you're going to see a huge amount of augmentation. You're going to see a lot of them becoming consultants to the industry. Rather than being a full-time employee, I'm going to be a consultant to this organization to help them whatever it is they're doing. And if you look at a lot of the technology companies today, they're already employing a lot of people in this consultant capacity, but I think that's going to increase significantly in the next decade. This is a little bit slower to take hold because it's very hard, I think, for any of us to let go of our assumptions that I've got to have these techies on my site building this product. It's proprietary, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's going to change tremendously. It's more about design and the creativity side than it is about the engineering side. So we'll see about that expert box. The communicators up there, those are the HR people, those are the media people, and so forth and so on that are out there. And those are the people that are going to see, they're going to be augmented with things like grammar checkers and so forth, but a lot of them are going to remain employed because they're on that right-hand side of that chart, on the media, the mental, the creative, the side of it that's harder and harder to automate. And then that upper box, the innovators, those are the ones that create the new products. They're the ones that are the idea people, the Steve Jobs of the world, all right? And they're going to be a mix of permanent people and innovators or consultants out there, okay? But even all of these will be augmented with technology. Every single one of these will find technology helping them to do whatever it is they do. So I thought it was really interesting that in May of this year, the CEO of IBM said that they laid off a whole bunch of people, a lot of lower-level coders, and he said that he doesn't see hiring them back ever. I don't think I'll ever hire them back because AI can do what they did. We don't need them anymore, okay? Mark Zuckerberg said, you're not coming back to many of the technologies because we don't need you anymore, all right? So these are the scary things. We hear about this and we say, oh my God, everybody's going to lose their job. They won't. They will reinvent themselves. They'll get skills that are useful and use them. But when we look at things like entry-level coding, already you can make your own website in 5 minutes. You don't need to have anybody do it for you. There's tools out there right now today. You go online, it'll create a website for you that's as creative and as good as anything you could ever imagine, because the code was written a long time ago. And there's these code banks that coders use. They can just draw code out of these banks. Well, ChatGTP is drawing it out of those banks and writing the code. So it's going to take somebody who comes up with what do we need to have software do. That's the creative side. That's the idea side. And then they say, how do we do it? Well, we go to the computer and ask GTP. So a lot of things are going to be in partnership with things like GPT. And I'm going to, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to recommend a book that you should read that was written in partnership with ChatGTP. Pretty clever book. It'd be really worth reading. So integrating AI into work and recruiting. We know AI and human intelligence is going to augment each other. I look at it as each of them, a robot and the human shaking hands with each other, right? We're going to become partners in what we're doing. We already are partners in this. If you use a GPS to drive your car, if you, and your car is a great example of where AI and technology is integrated with you. So you can take your phone call hands-free on your car. The GPS tells you where to go. And some cars are even driving partly on their own, okay, assisting you to drive, all right? And this is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And so, being a great driver is not going to be a tremendous skill anymore, except for maybe the race car drivers, okay? So a lot of internal functions, especially functions that aren't revenue generating, are going to disappear. They're going to either be outsourced RPO, and I really think that's going to happen a big time to internal recruiting functions. And things like finance, legal, they're probably going to all be outsourced to third parties, or they're going to be one or two people inside that coordinate and run those functions, and everything else will either be augmented with AI or it's going to be outsourced to somebody that can provide it on demand, as needed, when needed. Right? So that's a big change that we're going to see in company. I think you're going to see a lot of companies shrinking, becoming a lot smaller. I think small companies are not going to grow to be huge, because if they leverage technology wisely, they don't have any need to, okay? So we need to really spend time to define, how do people add value to our business? Where can we use technology, and where do people add the value that we need to have? That's a $100 question or $1 million question, okay? So this is a chart I put together of what I call the 10 steps of recruiting, okay? And anything in green, you can't really tell the colors, I'm sorry. It's a pretty lousy color thing up there, all right? But almost everything up there can be completely augmented or automated by technology. There's almost nothing, from sourcing to branding to posting, writing and posting job descriptions, to doing screening of candidates and skills and abilities, to matching them to jobs, even to communicate with them and chat with them, engage them in conversation, the administration, the generating of reports, all that stuff, even making offers, recommending salary levels, even writing the job, the offer letter. All of this can be completely automated or heavily augmented with technology today, okay? So onboarding, there's already software that completely automates the onboarding process, provides personalized information and video and other things to candidates. All the recording, and we talked a lot about workforce planning, and I could do another whole talk on why I think workforce planning is a waste of time, because we have to do real-time adaptive planning. There's no way you're going to plan the future workforce. We have no idea where it's going, okay? So you just have to be able to hop on the horse when you need to get on the horse, okay? But you're not really sure where the horse is going, all right? So that's a whole different story that we could talk about. But I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of automation in recruiting. The only thing holding it back now is money and the willingness to do it, I guess, the leadership to do it. But if you had an innovative leader with a budget, they could do this already today tremendously. Probably 80% they could do in an automated way, okay? This was just announced 2 days ago. ChatGTP and AI has now exceeded the human ability in reading comprehension, okay, which is hard to believe, in image recognition, and the latest version of ChatGTP 4, the one you pay for, if you show it a picture of something, it'll analyze and tell you what's going on. So let's say you have something that's broken. You can take a picture of it, and it would tell you what's probably wrong with it, and even recommend how to fix it. right? So this is already available now in ChatGTP. It's better at reading comprehension, and handwriting recognition is at human level now. And this didn't exist 6 months ago. So imagine what 6 months from now it's going to be able to do. Right? And what are you going to do about that? What does that mean? And for some people, it's fear and horror, and we need to regulate it. For other people, it's how can we incorporate this into our business? How can I leverage this to build my business, to make more money, to generate more customers? How can I really leverage this stuff to do it? So I mean, the growth of AI is truly transformational. There's no question. Okay. This is effect on automation in the United States, where it's going. Education. Education is going to be immensely affected by this. I was a professor at 2 universities in my life. Toward the end of my teaching, nobody came to class because they all did it online. Okay. I would go into the school and say, why am I here? Because there's 2 people in the room. And I said, why don't you go home and get on Zoom, okay? Is there benefits to being in the classroom? Yeah, there are. And yes, the socializing is important. But there's other ways to do that. There are other ways to do that in more creative ways. Let's get together once a month and have a group like this. Or let's just do some Saturday sessions, or whatever it is. But the other ways to get the socializing. But a lot of the delivery of education and delivery of learning is going to continue to be automated and online. And what's really holding it back right now in the school system is they're the babysitters for our kids, okay? And, when people were working at home, people couldn't go to work because the kids were home. So the schools play a vital role, but we have to figure out another way to do that, to leverage that. So I think the school systems are going to really be under a lot of stress in the next few years. How do they change? Yeah. STEM professionals, we already talked about this. I mean, anything in this technology space is being automated really rapidly. So if you're in science, technology, engineering, or math, I'm not saying they're not good careers to have, but they're not as good as they were 10 years ago. I'll tell you that right now, okay? And they still pay really well. And for the next probably decade, they'll be okay. But I have a lot of parents ask me, what should I recommend my kids major in school? And I say, to be quite honest with you, liberal arts. That's going to give you the most opportunity to go wherever you need to go. It's going to give you basic math, basic science, basic language, all the history, all the things you're going to need to move forward, okay? If you want to become a quant after that, then go to grad school and specialize in that, but realize it's probably a short-term career, and you're probably going to move on to something else after that. So it's really tough decisions. Parents have to make, kids have to make right now today about where to go and what to do, because the runway isn't just going to end abruptly. There'll be good jobs in technology for 10 or more years, okay? But there'll be fewer of them and harder to get. And so is there something else that a person could actually study or do that might have a better career-enhancing future for them, okay? Look at how fast GTP reached 100 million users. Unbelievable, okay? Just amazing, almost overnight. I mean, I think I heard about ChatGPT on Monday, and everybody in the world was using it on Tuesday. I mean, it's just amazing how quickly it took off. So, I mean, this is something that is truly accessible to all of us, and I think that's the difference. All the AI technology before now was really arcane and could only be accessed by, real techie type people. ChatGPT, we can all access, all right? From your grandmother to your kids, everybody can access this. And that makes it even more powerful. Okay? What's already being used, and here's just a list of some of the things. We're already using it to communicate with applicants. We're already using it in many companies to screen applicants when they first log in. Any of you that have seen Paradox and some of these other chat tools out there, they're getting more and more powerful every day, okay? And when we ask candidates, a lot of discussion I've had with candidates, what do you think about it? They love it. They get an instant response. They get the information they need. Now, there's dumb chatbots, which are just a script that somebody wrote and isn't effective. And then there are the intelligent chatbots, like Paradox, that are actually using AI and generate realistic, relevant answers to whatever question was asked, not something off a script. And so these are all things that are just going to continue to help us and generate good candidates. It can automate candidate searches. I mean, this is the big area. Sourcing, I don't think there's a strong future for sourcing myself. I'm amazed at how many people go to SourceCon, the big sourcing conference every year. It just amazes me because AI can do almost all of it. I've got a company I work with in Singapore. They've got 2 people doing sourcing for a company that hires about 15,000 people a year. Right? All done by automation and technology. Right? They don't need all those people doing sourcing. Yeah, you probably need it for those really rare, hard to find 1% of all the jobs. But let's face it, mostly we're just recruiting pretty ordinary mid-level jobs, and those AI can find with no problem. Okay? You can pre-select candidates for interviews. You can schedule the interviews automatically if you still do interviews. Okay? So these are all the things. Obviously, it's writing job descriptions. It's doing all of these things already, and will continue to expand what it can do. Okay? I think this administering automated interviews, this is something that HireVue has been doing for a while with a lot of controversy, and on both candidates and recruiters' side. But again, we're Model T. We're really early days in this stuff. And it'll get better, it'll get more sophisticated, and it will get far less biased than a human recruiter, far more accurate, and far more relevant in the kinds of things it's deriving from those interviews than we do today with people. Okay? And when people say AI is biased, nowhere near as biased as we are. Right? Nowhere near as biased as we are. Okay? All right? So this is, again, you'll get a copy of these slides. I'm not going to read all of these things, but ChatGPT is just able to do more and more every day. And I think you're going to be maybe even shocked at the things that it is capable of doing that we right now today insist or swear that only a human being can do these things. No technology can do these. And again, it's not a matter of whether you like the person doing it. It's a matter of can the technology do it. And you may still decide that I'd rather have a person doing it to some level, but you've got to accept the fact that a piece of technology could do it. So I have a new model for this is my model for internal recruiting. And I really think this is where it's going to evolve to be. I think internally, what's going to happen to the internal recruiting function, it's going to be focusing on marketing and branding. That's going to be its core function. How do we build an image for our company? How do we attract candidates to us to be interested in us? Okay? I think you're going to see that a performance office is going to be created, which is really analytics, to really assess continuously how we're doing and how we could get better at what we're doing. Again, pretty much automated. Okay? I think you're going to see the automation part of it really important. If you look up there at the red one, that's self-service employment. This is where candidates are going to come, have a virtual interview and screening, and get an offer immediately. No need to go to a recruiter. There's some companies doing this already. UPS is doing this, some others are, with certain positions. So why bother to have an interview? If they meet the qualifications and the skills, hire them right there on the spot. Okay? So that's going to happen. And then then RPO is going to take over the rest. And I think if I was a really smart, and if I ever went back into an internal recruiting role, the first thing I'd do is find one of you guys and hire you, all right? Because you guys have a lot of the benefits that an internal function will never have. You have the ability to invest in technology, which internal functions struggle tremendously to get any kind of budget for anything. You have technical savvy, or you can get technical savvy as employees. Internal recruiting functions have zero technical savvy, usually. All right? They buy a product from a vendor, and then they say, how are we going to integrate this? And they have to hire a third party to integrate it, and it never works very well. Okay? There's 100 other things I could go on as to why internal recruiting is flawed, basically. Now, there may be a little one down there at the bottom. That's recruiting. And that's for those very specialty positions, maybe they're proprietary or they're executive search or whatever it is. There'll be some internal recruiting, but it's going to be really small in terms of recruiters. And I think we're going to also have to include employee development as part of that whole process because it's all part of the cycle. So especially with internal mobility, we're going to have to develop and train people so they can move into jobs within the company. So I think this is kind of a generic version of a new evolution for what recruiting may look like in the future, maybe should look like in in the future. Okay? So I think it's time to challenge our thinking. I think we all are just filled with assumptions, have to interview people, all these things. We have all these assumptions that we grew up with, and we don't challenge it. We have to challenge those assumptions every day. We need to really change how we think about things. Try to look at it differently, from a different perspective, okay? Change the procedures. Think about what you're doing and how you could do it more effectively, how could I leverage technology better? Even if I don't have a lot of money, whatever money I've got, how could I use it to do something better than I'm doing it now? Or streamline it and make it better. Learn that everything we think is important about recruiting is probably not. Challenge every single thing we do and say, why do we do this? What would happen if we didn't do it anymore? Would the whole world come to an end if we stopped doing this? Okay? And how are we structured? Like I said earlier, are we structured the right way? I don't think most organizations are structured right at all. Okay? Okay. I think automation is the key to your success. I think you've got to anticipate and build proactive talent pipelines. How do you do this? By getting the data to go out there and say, what is it likely that this company is going to do? Let's take an example. Let's take a company, let's take a sports company, let's take a Nike. And let's say Nike, which is what they actually did a few years ago, let's say we're going to start putting electronics in our clothes. Well, as you as an RPO could say, maybe this apparel company is going to want to put electronics in its clothes. And if it does, it's going to need technical people. It's going to need the kind of people that can design and build whatever it is they need to put in this clothing. You could already anticipate before you go to pitch to a client that you're going to have a pipeline of these talented, skilled, technical people that they could immediately hire because you anticipated their need ahead of time. So we need to do a lot more of that anticipation of what a potential client might be. Identify a client that you would like to have, anticipate what their talent needs are or might be, and then go out and build a pipeline proactively to do that, using technology and AI to do that. And that's where the power of technology comes in. Use analytics much more effectively than we are today. I mean, this is a key to success, is using your data. Design every process has got to be designed around AI and with AI, and leverage AI to train recruiters, to augment what they do, to give them new skills, and invest your profits as much as you can in the technology and in these improvements. And partner with ChatGPT. I mean, this is really going to be your big buddy. This is going to be everybody's right hand, okay? On-demand recruiting. I need this person tomorrow. Sure, I'll have them for you tomorrow. How many of you know Lou Adler? Anyone know Lou Adler? Okay, a lot of people heard of Lou Adler. His metric for a recruiter is as soon as a hiring manager asks for a candidate, you present one. He said that is his ultimate metric for a really incredible recruiter. Okay? And the only way you do that is anticipating need, thoroughly understanding a hiring manager's requirements, the job, and so forth, and then having built that talent ahead of time. And that's where technology can incredibly help us to do that. Okay? So predicting demand. Okay? Deliver personalized communication to candidates. Okay? Make instant offers instead of having to go through a process. When a job is absolutely not super critical, why can't you just make an instant offer? Okay? Hire more rebels. I think we really need to expand the whole talent ecosystem. How do we hire more older people, younger people? How do we bring different people into the equation? More people that work in different lifestyles. And that means you have to influence your hiring managers and your clients to think about a broader talent pool than they normally think about. Because even all of us and most companies think about permanent employment and occasionally temporary or a contractor. But we need to expand that equation out to a lot more than that, I think, to be successful in the future, okay? Especially with the talent shortages. And I could have gone into a whole thing on the demographics, but they're scary because we're going to have fewer and fewer people willing to work. So without technology, we're going to be in deep trouble, all right? And be a rebel yourself. I think I've said this before, but challenge your own assumptions, try new ideas, use the Google term fail, but fail fast. Try things. If they don't work, move on, okay? Do what is countercultural. You don't have to do what everybody else in RPO does. Just come out and figure out how can I do something different and unique that's going to make me more competitive. Okay? Embrace AI and never punish failure. So this is the book I recommend. It's written by Reid Hoffman. It's called Impromptu. It's a fantastic book about AI and different things it can do. And it's written in partnership with ChatGPT-4. So he writes a paragraph, then he poses a question to ChatGPT-4, and it responds to that question, and he puts that in the book. Fantastic book. It's really inexpensive on Amazon. He was giving it away free for a while. I think the audio book is free. If you want to listen to it instead of reading it. Definitely worth getting a hold of, and thank you very much. If you want to get a hold of me, I do a weekly newsletter called fotnews.futureoftalent.org. It's free. You can sign up for that. You can reach me at that email. Thanks.